Welcome back to the Atomic Level, the show every Wednesday that takes the office hours of AMA, Ask Matt Anything, and now this week turns them into AOA, Ask Owen Anything. So we are here to decode the matters of wealth, one insightful conversation at a time, using your questions every Wednesday during these Shields and Succession office hours. And we're talking today with Owen Hathaway, who is a lawyer at the Miley Law Office and your trusted planner, and is sitting in for Matt, who is talking to 300 lawyers down in Denver today about Wyoming Asset Protection Trust and could not attend this session like he normally does. So, Owen, we're glad to have you back. And I am Chris Snook for those who are joining in the live chat. And we're here to talk about the piece that dropped today, pick up on the conversation we had last week about whether a business is transferable, owner succession, owner dependence, hobby businesses that earn real money, what to do with them, and all those things, and get your unique perspectives. But before we dive in, the disclaimer is Owen is an attorney. He practices in the state of Colorado. You may not live in the state of Colorado, and he may not yet be your attorney. So therefore, nothing you hear today should be construed as legal advice. I am certainly not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV, but I argue like one. So that's your disclaimer. This is educational and insightful only. These office hours are open so that you can ask the tough questions here without a billable hour. And then ultimately, if you are looking for an attorney, we'll give you the way to do that. If you are interested in Wyoming asset protection stuff and want access there, or if you're a Colorado resident and you want to work with Owen, you can do that. We'll give you that information. But the disclaimer is this is for educational purposes only, so you can take it to your advisor. And if you are an advisor, you can take it to your clients and empower better conversations. Owen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here.
Was that a good mouthful of disclaimer? Did I do that right, or do I need to disclaim some more?
Yeah, you did it. You did it right. I mean, like you said, I am an attorney. I don't think there's anybody on that I'm their attorney. I don't see any. So yeah, unless we've
Never
signed an
know who's
agreement.
listening on the
That's right. Yeah, unless we've signed an agreement to say that I'm your attorney. If it says so in writing, maybe I am. But yeah, I don't think I'm an attorney for anybody on the chat right now.
All right. So if you are interested in a pre-consult or actually potentially engaging at any point, we'll just get this part out of the way. Colorado residents can dial 970-820-0090. If you're interested in asset protection and advanced strategies and the use of asset protection trusts, especially like Wyoming Asset Protection Trust, what I use, then you can, all 50 states can call 307-463-3600. Those are the quick plugs. The last thing we'll mention is last week we talked a lot about what to outsource, what to keep as it relates to building transferable value in your business and even just reducing compliance risk, things like that. One of our Wealth Commander Pro brand partners and subscribers is Pebble, P-E-B-L. And if you are hiring abroad or remotely and you are doing that on your own or through a PEO or something like that, I encourage you to take a look at what I implemented a couple years back called an employer of record. Pebble is the company that I use. They're subscribers. So this is their offer to anyone else who's a subscriber. You actually pay less than I do. I pay $3.99 a month per employee. It's worth every penny and more. It takes all of it off of my plate. I can hire in 185 countries, not that I plan to, with one single line item on my thing and not one worry about benefits or HR compliance or any of that stuff or paying people in different currencies. So if any of that sounds good to you, and if you live in a state where you don't want to have Nexus for your entity for other reasons like me, then highpebble.ai is where you go to learn more, and you'll save, I think right now, 25% because they're very generous to the podcast and to the listeners of that. So those are the two plugs, Owen. Let's get into the questions. Let's start with kind of a recap of like where we were after the drop today and also what Matt and I discussed at length. But I want your take on it because you and I were in the green room and you're talking about a hobby business. And I kind of pushed back. I was like, well, these guys are making real money, like 2 to 3 million, 4 million a year. I don't think that's a hobby. And you said,
Well, I mean, just because you're making real money doesn't mean it's a hobby. Doesn't mean like you're treating it as a hobby. You know,
not as a
I
hobby. Yeah, just
well,
that you're not as a hobby.
yeah, it might have the clothing of a business. It might look and smell like a business. Your customers might see it as a business, but if you haven't done, if you're doing your taxes and not really looking at them, if you're not thinking about how you've structured the business as an S corp, as a C corp, am I just putting this all on my as a pass through on my Schedule C, just because that's what I've always done. If you're not thinking about continuity, if you're not thinking about repeatable processes, if everything exists in your head, I mean, that to me kinda seems more like operating, on autopilot, which is how we do hobbies. We do hobbies because 'cause they're fun, and making money's fun, right? And so, I use that more to talk about how people approach their business, not literally. I mean, the IRS has rules about what is a hobby versus a business, but I'm thinking about this more just colloquially.
Well, you actually make me wanna go in a different direction than altogether with this AMA, 'cause I saw the audience questions and they're all good, and we'll weave them all in, but actually you bring up something I think is more timely and relevant. So yesterday I had a 3 hou almost 3 hours. It was like 2 hours and 47 minutes. We broke Substack with Charlie Garcia, who is consistently in the top 10 bestsellers, been number 1 several times. The video is somewhere out there on Substack servers, and if Substack is listening to this, please find it and restore it, because I wanna publish the replay. I do know it exists because I was able to get to the replay, I just can't download it, it's not on my back end. So, anyway, for those who are wondering why that didn't drop yet, there's a reason. It's not my fault. It's not the pilot's fault as the plane lands on the ground really hard, it's the asphalt.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that one too. I really enjoyed the last
But
time you talked to him.
the point of this was Charlie talked very candidly about how he's kind of written for his whole life, for his career. He's always liked to
Mhm,
write, and he's a very good writer for anyone who follows Charlie. And so in that case, and in that, kind of ilk, it's like sometimes our hobbies become a business, and we
mhm,
didn't necessarily intend it. So in other words, he has this book, this novel that he's been trying to get out forever, and he's finally ready to do it. Harper Collins is on board to publish it. He's got this kind of thing he was talking about. Do I drop serial? Do I serialize it on Substack first? We got now the audience, and then but it's a different genre. It's a novel, and it's called Satoshi versus Goliath. And he's got the beta copies going out before all that. So he's kind of in this like strategic conundrum of how do I release it, and then what piece of the puzzle do I pull? But this thing is now becoming a business. The reason he started his other Substack, which is now literally one of the most successful Substacks in finance on the platform, both monetarily and engagement wise. I mean, people write long form posts as comments on his stuff to the hundreds. This thing now generates real income, right? To your
mhm,
point, it's like a $2 to $3 million asset. Now, it was started so that he would have a platform of people to maybe be interested in this novel he was writing. That was kind of like a
mhm,
lifelong passion project.
right,
So sometimes through the lens of we over engineer the business and all it is a hobby because we
mhm.
go over entity it, we over lawyer it, we do all that, and then the thing doesn't actually really
You can
work.
never over lawyer it, come on.
Says the lawyer. I love that. That was classic. But then the other thing is like sometimes we like delay, or we like it's super personality dependent. It's the hobby that we love to do. It starts to make money, which we also love, but then all of a sudden it gets a life of its own. So, like in Charlie's case, where all of a sudden it started out organic and then it became a thing, and now
Mhm,
it's like a business.
mhm,
It has to fit somewhere in his entity structure, which includes, R360 Global and all these other things, but it can't just like be this little thing over here because it could potentially even pose liability to some of the other things. So at some point, we
yeah,
have to start wondering, how do we institutionalize this or professionalize this hobby? Not just for
mhm,
tax purposes, other purposes, or because we want to sell it, but because there's other risks associated with it potentially if it's tied to
yeah.
a brand, correct?
Well, anytime you start doing something for money, rules start attaching, and, those default rules are probably not written in your favor. They're probably written in the favor of several taxing authorities. And you know, I can't remember what I was looking at recently, but the people sitting in the rooms writing, creditor uh, uh, laws and regulations are the creditors. There's the business owners are too busy running their business.
That's a good
It's
point.
the people who are in the business of collecting money from you who are in there writing those default laws. So, you know, you, the the it's just accepting those defaults by doing things that you love and not thinking about it as a business. Um, Really can just leave things exposed on the tax side, on the liability side, asset protection, succession to the people you love. All kinds of things happen by accident. And it's just, working with advisors or even just educating yourself to apply some intent and some design design to your life can have a tremendous impact.
So, like, let's kind of try and I want to hear your thoughts on like a lot of the folks that are on this platform, specifically Substack, are obviously at some level monetizing or designing a hobby slash business around monetizing their name, image, likeness, and their influence, whatever
Mhm.
that may be, right? So, as it relates to that, and we look at kind of social, uh,
Which, by the way, is property, just like a house.
right? NIL is property.
Yep, and you own it. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of people forget that concept.
Well, so I'm gonna say it this way, I may not be right, but I wanna hear how you react to it. So, how I explain it to a lot of folks is we assume or we make assumptions around our identity that are not real when it comes to ownership because we are living with and inside of our identity in our minds. So, for instance, we
Mhm,
think that Chris J. Snook is us. Chris J. Snook is a property
mhm,
that either exists out there on the internet as
mhm,
an ownerless property or as an assumed owner property or as a licensed property or as a persona, and the container of which I do that depends on my ability not only to protect it, preserve it, keep it from deep fakes or take some action when deep fakes happen, but also monetize it at long term because Jessica Simpson, Prince, like we can think of different names who literally had to sue or go bankrupt to get their actual name back
yeah.
because they didn't think about it as property. And so in a
Do
world
do you know
today,
do you know Mr. Nissan?
I think I know this story. I don't
Do you know the
know it.
story? Yeah, that's one that turned out nicely. If you go to Nissan.com on any web browser, you're not gonna see anything about cars. It was Mr. Nissan owned that domain from the very beginning of the internet. He still owns it. He's not here anymore, but it's still there.
No kidding. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So that was not the story that I had heard. I'd heard a different version that wasn't true. So that's I didn't.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
looking at it right now in memory loving memory of Uzi Nissan.
that's awesome. And he had
Died in
nothing to do with the
2020.
cars. He had
Nothing
nothing.
to do with the car. He was an IT professional.
That's so funny.
Yep.
Um, so the point being that even if your hobby is supporting another business that you either own or maybe you're contracted to, meaning your hobby might be you're an influencer, you're a social media person, you're an Instagram or a TikTok or whatever. These things are now obviously full blown enterprises. I mean, we're watching what happens with those who are successful, and then we're seeing everybody else, right? Mr.
Mhm.
Beast alone is a $5 billion asset,
Yep.
an enterprise, as an example on the upper scale. Now, if that's not our ambition, that's not the point. The point is none of us want to lose our name. None of us want to have our name attached in lawsuits that have nothing to do with us or that
Yeah.
aren't really our fault. And we can't control what we can't control, but what we can control is how we protect or put moats and kind of fortressing around some of these things that matter to us. So um, we can get into that a little bit, actually, the NIL side, because I think that's where this hobby meets real business thing kind of could take off. You have college students now of all genders playing all sports that are making serious income
Mhm.
in the last 3 years, and we're not talking about Shedeur Sanders and the $20 million, those are the anomalies because they're there, the D1s, the big ones, but we're talking about the volleyball twins that make 1.25 million off their NIL, and no one's heard their
Mhm.
name outside of the people who really care about them.
Right.
But, like, there is real money now even in Division II for NIL, where you could have a 50, 60, 70, $100,000 a year income playing a non-major sport simply because, people are figuring out that there's money to be made leveraging this athlete's
Yeah.
influence while they're
So
in town.
somebody's gonna have to go update that South Park episode.
Yeah, exactly. So when we think about our name, image, and likeness as property or our influence as property, that's one angle to look at this. When we think about the professionalization of a business that could run without us. That's another angle to look at us. And so again, here's another reason why to think about property. If the property is separate from me, the living, breathing Chris or Owen,
Mhm.
then it could be run by somebody else.
Mhm.
And that's the point is how it's like what I've been thinking about a lot lately is my mouth makes me the majority of my money, whether people like my mouth or not. And if I die or become incapacitated, my mouth stops.
Yeah.
But what about all the mouthing that I did to date? What about
Yeah.
owning my 11 lamps? What about what AI can do? Not, and I'm not talking about Robotar, avatar versions of me because that'll drive me crazy. I like to be real, but I'm talking about faceless YouTube things, like things that could go on in perpetuity that continue to serve and iterate against the audience that benefit my family as an income stream and that don't require me to run it.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
the things that we want to help people think about, but also the pros, cons, the structuring, when to do what. So what are your thoughts on that? Take that any direction you want to go.
Yeah, so, when your output is your livelihood, is your value, that makes it particularly challenging. Recording artists have this a little bit different. I think the business structures around that, have been around a while, and, the ownership of catalogs and things like that, it's contentious, can be contentious, especially when it's more than one person. You look at Nirvana and Courtney Love, the Beatles, Michael Jackson. You know, I don't know if those models apply in the new media business. Um, I mean, there's so many ways that you can reach an audience now. Just having a conversation like this, we're gonna probably talk about 10 different things, and it's a great way to spend time with you. Develop a relationship with the people in the live chat, but it survives, right? And so
Whether we wanted to or not. So that's the other thing. You know, things
Did I
survive.
really say that?
Well, no, but so these things survive. Like you said, the South Park episode actually was a good prelude to some of the other things to be, preparing for or putting architecture around, which is what do I want to survive
Mhm.
beyond my capacity? What do I want the ability to pull down without a major fight or without causing stress to my
So that a Substack crash while it's processing your live stream.
yeah, but even families, and the professionals that and you work with a lot are other advisors, right? Like I'm really focused on the future of advice. That's the people I want to serve. I'm not here to make the next superstar. That's somebody else's job.
Mhm,
There's plenty of people that are good at that. I think I see Elle Oman, an old friend. I see her in the live chat. Hey, Elle, she does that. Her and her husband have been doing that for years. So that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to help the financial advisor, the estate planner, and their clients have a more human relationship while their money is more protected and grows at a better rate in this world of a token economy and AI native everything. So those architectures are what matter to me. But I think of those are small businesses. If you're imagining $1 billion in AUM, you're basically a 7.5 to $10 million a year small business, and you probably have between 15 to 25 full-time employees, counting
mhm.
yourself, and you're probably getting a 25 to 30% EBITDA if you're well run in today's market. That is a transferable asset. However, caveat for those who are financial advisors, just because someone's willing to pay 10 times revenue or 6 times revenue for your book is built on your personality, your way of doing things. And a lot of that knowledge is trapped here. It's not necessarily
Yeah,
codified in the recruitment. It's not necessarily codified in the training of next generation advisors that are going to take your wealth advisory that is in your name or in your branded name and kind of take it to the next 20, 30 years
yeah,
when you sunset out. More than 50% of the RIAs in this country are over age 55. So they might have another 10 to 15 years. I don't think they want to just go play golf forever, but within the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to see 50% of advisors retire, but what are they gonna
yeah,
sell it to? Who are they gonna how are they gonna process it out? And
yeah.
then so all this comes back together, what's transferable, what's not. Obviously, that's probably not a hobby business, but maybe on the side, they
No.
started to do Substack to generate leads, and now they have these 2 things that are totally different but support each other. They have a media property, like me and you,
Yep.
and then they have this advisory thing like a law firm or financial advisory,
Yeah.
right? And those are now
Well,
2 assets.
yeah, you're totally, just putting me in the mind of our approach to, getting started with either estate planning or, if we didn't do your planning and someone comes to us after a loss, knowing who you have and what you have, and being very honest with yourself. It's not that hard to figure out who you have in your life that's important to you.
Hopefully
That
not.
hope hopefully not.
Elon
I mean,
Elon might have a couple people he's not sure about, there's some
yeah.
people.
How many
No,
people
no,
did
no
how many
disrespect.
people applied as an heir of Prince? The
Yeah.
80 some odd, right? Um, for most people, the who you have is pretty easy, but that what you have, being honest about it, if you're in an area like what you're talking about, where you've got a media presence, you've got life name, image, and likeness out there that's whether it's being monetized today or not, being honest about it and cataloging it, because if it's only something that you do in your head, that's not something anybody else knows about. And taking the time to take that inventory at some point, and working with an advisor is frequently a good idea because they can give you that outside perspective. If you're treating something like a hobby, I see we have a dentist on the chat listening, and
Nice.
um, I see this with, medical professionals a lot. There's I did a lot of work, in medical billing, in a previous life, and one of the things, that the urology advisors would always tell the urologists, "Stop doing surgeries. Surgeries are an expensive hobby. You're losing money." So, being honest about what you have and what you're doing, get it out of your head, work with an advisor who has some perspective, whether it's a business advisor, an accountant, an attorney, somebody who can look at things and work with you and understand those dynamics. You know, at least quarterly, I think. But
Yeah, one of the things we talked about at length was insurance can fund the plan, but it's not the plan. A
yeah,
lot of times, and I say that because I think we do see a couple folks on here just by their name that we can tell are what I would call regulated or licensed professionals, right? So
yeah.
lawyers, dentists, accountants, fiduciaries. So a lot of times they're buttoned up on things that maybe a normal hobbyist entrepreneur or founder might not be, right? Because they have to be. They have a license or they have a medical board or they have
Oh,
CEUs.
oh, you haven't seen the physician offices I've seen.
Yeah. Well,
Buttoned up
let's
is not how I would describe it.
all right. So we'll take the high road and say that assume
Okay.
they're buttoned up. Assume they're buttoned up where they're still probably vacant. And why I say that is because all kidding aside, like a lot of by nature or by just smart risk avoidance, they're well insured if they can
Yeah.
be. They hate the
Yep.
insurance
They will
because
be.
it's
Yep.
expensive. It's
Absolutely.
expensive, but they're probably well insured because they're thinking, okay, if something happens to me, incapacitation, death, whatever, right? Malpractice, whatever. I need to make sure that this thing survives or that my personal life doesn't get hammered, right? So they're insured either by mandate or by design. And then what happens to a lot of us, and I made this mistake, years ago too, is I'm like, okay, I'm good. I got umbrella, I got this, I got that. But that's not a plan.
Mhm.
That's coverage.
No.
And
Yeah.
and there's a big distinction there.
Well, did you ever see the movie The Founder
I love that
with
movie. I've
Michael
seen it like
Keaton?
10
Yeah,
times.
absolutely. I mean, and it always sticks with me, that scene where they realize that McDonald's is not a restaurant, it's a real estate business. And,
Another
you
one
know
where they realize their name is not the same thing as the trade.
Yep, 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 yet another one. It happens. Yeah, there's a woman, in Oregon whose name was Star Buck, who owned a coffee shop, little local coffee shop. She did not get to keep the name of her coffee shop. That was her name. It was her legal name. She didn't change it. But anyway, no, so same thing applies to professionals though, as the McDonald's thing. We look at things like splitting, the professional practice out from a service organization? Do you own the building you're in? Does the medical practice even have the lease? If you don't own it, who is the employer of the people that you meet at the front door and the medical assistants and so forth? Doesn't have to be the doctor. There's ways to set these things up so that you can have a more clear idea of what I have, what's the value. I can even multiply what I have, actually create more value for myself just by doing a little bit of planning. Do a few legal documents, a few filings with Secretary of State and the IRS. Yeah, there can be
It's
some.
a very important thing. I think it comes back to I love how you said this now twice, in different episodes, but it's worth repeating again, which is, what do I have?
Mhm,
Right, and then my one of my dear mentors and smartest one of the smartest people I've ever met is a guy named Mickey McManus, and, he's on here, actually, he's on Substack. I don't know if he's writing a lot or not, but you should look him up, Mickey McManus. Um, he's a builder by design. He was the COO of a company called Maya, which basically made AutoCAD the dominant force of anything related to the built environment, right? So he was kind of a partner and a COO of that, and that was kind of where he made his name and his career. Wrote a book called Trillions years ago about living amongst an information ecology where we're no longer living with information, we're living within it. And it was prophetic because that's where we are today and
yeah,
that's where we're heading. But he's very practical, and one of the things he always says is, or what I had him on an interview years ago for a different show, and he said, "Where it is what it is." And so what you just said is, "What do I have?" And then what Mickey would say is, "Where is it?
mm,
Where does it
yeah,
live?" So what do I have? Inventory. That's step 1. Number 2, where does it currently live? Meaning, is it in an entity? Is it in my
yeah,
head? Is it a sole prop? Is it on a website that I control or don't control? Is it on a platform with terms and conditions that can be changed at any time that I sign my life away to?
mhm,
What do I have? I have a following. Okay, great. Where is the following?
yeah,
Is it on
yeah,
Substack? Is it on Instagram? Is it on Meta? Is it on YouTube? How much and where? Who owns it? So if I have the following, I may think I own it, but I don't. And as soon as I say you may think you own it, you realize you don't, because unless you're
right,
Zuckerberg, you don't own it.
yep,
And you don't even own the identity that they're following, because that's a Facebook ID, that's a Google ID, that's an Apple ID,
yep,
right? So
yep.
I own the
You
masters, recordings, because they sit on a hard drive in my freaking house or in my warehouse. But I don't own the Apple Podcast version. I can't control whether that gets taken down or not. I could argue, but that Apple ID that publishes these episodes out to Apple Podcasts is not my asset.
Yep,
That is your asset, and I've signed away my right to use it for distribution on their platform. So what it is and where it is, and where
I
it
think
is
that's column G on our spreadsheet that we have for doing this stuff.
what'd you say?
So, I think that's column G on our spreadsheet we have for doing this
Yeah.
stuff.
So
It's
there is
so just agreeing with you. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so column G is where it is what it is, and really, and also who owns it, right? So I would add to
Yeah,
Mickey's thing and say where it is what it is, and who owns it. What it is either my asset or my likeness,
mhm,
and it's someone else's asset. And then who owns it is, well, who owns that location where that thing is, and what is my access, my proxy, my control over the existence perpetuity of that location. And it doesn't matter whether it's a digital property or whether it's a physical property, right?
yeah,
It's no different than my business. Where's my business? My business exists in building 123 Main Street. Who owns that
right,
building?
right.
Do I own it through an entity structure, through my personal name, or do I have a landlord that owns it? Because if the landlord decides to go bankrupt and I'm a tenant, well,
That's
I,
gonna affect you
it's going to affect me, right? So
one
it's
way
no
or
different
another.
in the physical world or digital world. So the inventory is key,
And
right? Is what do I?
then you've got the mixed ones like crypto.
Yeah. So let's
Did
talk about that.
digital and yeah,
So first thing, step number one, whatever size business you have. If you're on this, you have a business worth keeping or protecting, or an income that attaches to it that's worth keeping or protecting, you wouldn't be listening to this. So, what do I have? List it all out. Um, where is it?
Mhm.
List that out. It may live in multiple places. So, like, what I have may live in multiple places, but where does the master live? Like, so for instance, if it's a derivative copy, you want to know where those things are, but where does the actual source code or source item live? And then, is all that in one company? Because I started an S corp in California because I'm a Californian and I started a business and then I added all these other things, but it's just easier. I got a bank account. I just run it all through and I just do my books with different.
Right.
Okay, great. But what if your business is a service business, which has one layer of risk, rewards, liabilities, issues, things, and
Mhm.
then you have an operating component with employees, or then you have a media component that doesn't. Do you really want all those things living in one corp, in one state, or is that necessary? And that's where
Yeah.
you start to the architecture.
Yeah, and, it's really hard to say that there's one architecture that works for every situation.
No,
You know,
there isn't. There's kinda like how many bedrooms and baths do you have and want,
yeah.
right? But then
It
there's like, hey, there's modulars, right? Like, we work with people. It's like, hey, you could start with kind of the colonial, like, 4 bedroom,
Mhm.
3 bath, and do you want this elevation or that elevation on the front? And then somebody's like, "No, I want a, 4,000 square foot custom build with a garage.
Yeah.
Here's my acreage," right? Okay, well, then that's a different architecture, but a lot of these things are generic enough where you could say what it is, where does it live, who owns it, and then start to think about, am I currently organized in a way where if I drew my universe on a piece of paper, 3 by 5 card,
Mhm. Mhm.
that the entities that exist today, whether they be a sole prop entity or whether they be LLC corp, whatever, all that stuff, do those things properly serve what I have?
Yeah.
If you can say yes, then you're great. If you're not sure, you should learn more and you should talk to someone who can help you. And if you know that they don't fit, you got to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Calling back to the discussion you had with Matt the other day, I think another thing you need to look at as you're going through the inventory of things you have is what happens to that thing without me. Take me out of that. What happens? Is it does it live? Does it survive? An operating business that has employees and is providing services or generating product. It's generating product, and you take yourself out unless you have some kind of proprietary, in your head knowledge about the production of that product. You can it's going to survive. If you're a professional and your business is giving people advice, how much value does it really have after you? Um, the media, the new media stuff, like what you're doing, like what we're doing here, that's going to survive without you. That's a new kind of planning. Um,
Yeah.
not
Well,
one we've had to do a whole lot
it
of yet.
survive in two forms, right? So there's the argument that could be made, and this is an argument I have with myself because I'm open kimono. This journey started for me a couple of years ago. Um, like everything does, when I got surprised and blindsided by someone I didn't expect to do something really bad to us. And so pain is a good teacher, right? And it also exposes where you're vulnerable. Um, and so then I started then more recently, the twins came a couple years ago, like more recently, you just start to realize I'm not 25 anymore. And even though I could have, we just think different, right? Like when you're
Yep.
25, you're just never gonna die. Even though people do, you're never going to. And then when you're 50, you're like, "Oh my god, I just lost a friend I didn't expect to lose." And that that could have been me. And
Mhm.
then, and then every year after that, you just stay in that question, right? And try not to get miserable. So I sat there and I thought about it and I went, "Okay, there's a piece of me that will always disappear when I disappear. No matter what form factor we get, no matter how good AI gets." But is that
Unless you're
relevant to the
Tupac,
business?
right? Tupac is still touring.
Well, but yeah, but again, is that relevant to the business? It
No,
might be
it
relevant to
was
me. It might be relevant
bad
to
joke.
my taste, around what I think the business is, but as it relates to a valuable enterprise, is it relevant? And the answer could be probably not, or maybe so, but now more than ever, it's not a binary choice, meaning you don't disappear overnight because there are ways to evolve and continue to take predictive generative stuff and now with voice, with visual, with everything else, recreate this conversation without us being here with all new content and all new people that are live in the feed, a mix of robots and humans. That is here. That is coming. It's the worst it'll ever be. So, like, I don't do it today because I don't need to or want to, but there will be a point where it'll be indiscernible whether this is me talking to you or this is my robot talking to you. And the worst that that technology will ever be is today. So, there is a new opportunity to design for that and also solve some of these problems that were harder to solve before. But it also creates new complexity because now you're dealing about digital rights management, and maybe you didn't even know what that was. Now you're dealing with NIL as a real asset and maybe even an asset class in the
Yeah.
future that could be invested against, traded against. You're dealing with a whole bunch of things that most people don't think about when they're just out there talking or writing, or lawyering. But even as a lawyer, like, how do you think about that? Because lawyers trade time for money. I mean, that's just is what it is. Like, you can dress it up in any business model you want, but
Yeah.
dentists
Yeah,
trade time for
and
money.
I mean, we literally have ethical obligations, at least in Colorado, that says, your your the fees you charge have to be reasonably related to the effort that it took to produce the work. Um, that was one of the reasons we weren't even allowed to accept crypto, and in some cases still are not allowed to accept crypto as payment because it has to have a defined, value at the time you receive it. Um, you know, that again, open kimono, these are things I'm, wrestling with myself. How do I, stop trading time for money? Um, and what does the life of my loved ones, what does my wife's life look like without me? Everybody's relationship is different. My wife is not an attorney, um, and so without me, she's got her set of skills. Um, Till a little while ago, she was a professional mom. She was a great professional mom, but, that's hard to get paid for. And when, you know, being a professional grandma, as we're hoping for here pretty soon, that still doesn't pay. It's worth its weight in gold, but um, how do you monetize it? You can't. So that's definitely what we're struggling with, and I got to say that the promise of AI is, I mean, there's just so many directions you can take this. Using AI tools to accelerate the extraction of knowledge and experience out of your head, that's kind of the direction I think I'm taking, because I've got a whole bunch of stuff up here. I don't even know what it all is, right? It takes conversations like this to pull it out. People asking questions, posing scenarios, and I've got how many dozens of years doing this stuff, that I can pull that experience to bear and solve problems. Um, how do I get that out of my head, and express it in something other than me? One way is software. I think, there's a lot of bad software out there. Um, I think that, things like Claude Code, are giving us opportunities to create software that better expresses the experience and expertise of people like me, people like you, people like the RIA. Um, we're not doing the meat space AI a whole lot yet, but we've got we've got robots that are doing surgeries. Um, so I
Right.
think there are opportunities there to accelerate that extraction. And then that to me, as a amateur hobby economist, then brings this whole value proposition question to play. If we've created an excess supply of us, what does that do to the value? What does that do to the price? So I don't know. It is these are things that I'm thinking about. They're clearly things you're thinking about. And then here's where my estate planning attorney brain kicks in. I know you, Chris, are thinking about all kinds of things that not that many people are touching yet. You're at the forefront of these thoughts, talking to the people that are, creating this new world. Are you handing that to somebody when you're gone that has that experience, that wealth of, you know, present knowledge? We've got to be able to hand it to somebody who hasn't been thinking about all these things. and that's a big part
Yeah,
of
and I
what I
that
do in my
is
day-to-day
that is
work.
the biggest yeah, that is the biggest, balancing act because when you think about a family office, they got designed because it was a way to kind of create better coordination amongst a large empire, and it was a cheaper way than paying individual fees to every disconnected, disparate service provider that was not
Mhm,
full-time for you, right?
mhm,
And so it was exclusive for people with a minimum probably 250 million in net worth to
mhm,
have the infrastructure of a family office. We live in a world now where I believe, and I'm kind of bullish on this, that there's a virtual family office infrastructure that will do the coordination across all the advisors that'll be affordable for any household with
mhm.
a million or more dollars worth of investable assets. And that's an amazing and exciting thing when you think about it because but it also puts fee compression and it changes the role of the human, but doesn't eliminate it. If anything,
Yeah,
it changes the focus of it and it demands more of it. So I am kind of fascinated by how big the gap is between what AI will likely do to the industry and what the human's role will be. Like it's such a binary thing of, oh, we're going to lose all these jobs. And then, oh, but we might create more. It's like, no, it's not a binary black or white. We're losing jobs or
no.
we're gonna create more and whatever. It is a complete rethinking of the human experience inside of that commercial activity, whatever that is. Human beings are going to transfer 22 or $124 trillion worth of wealth over the next 22 years. Human
I don't
beings are
know
going
of an AI that owns a, bank account yet.
no, and when they do, it's a moot point because it'll just increase the aggregate. Right now, humans control and own $124 trillion worth of assets that will change hands because of generational transfer.
Mhm,
And changing hands does not mean I want you to have it, Owen, so you get it. It means there's leakage, there's predatory confiscation from state actors, government actors, scammers, everything in between. And oh, by the way, then there's what you intended to have happen happens, right?
yeah,
But whether or not I understand it, you understand it, our wives understand it, our kids understand it, one thing is certain, for 22 years starting today, 5 trillion a year is going to change hands. That's happening. The
yep,
question becomes, and we wrote about this, we talked about this, am I prepared, right, to receive it if I'm on the receiving end? Am I prepared to capitalize on it if I'm opportunistic,
mhm,
right? Because someone else was not prepared to receive it?
yep,
Am I structured where I won't leak any of it that I don't want to leak to avoidable things? Because you can't prevent everything, but you can prevent things that you know about.
yep,
And if not, what am I doing about it today? Because every day forward from here, 5 trillion a year will transfer because boomers and Gen X are going to be doing that dance. And that doesn't matter what the price of the asset is. That's just the value that'll transfer. So obviously the prices will fluctuate. There'll be volatility. There'll be everything in between. There'll be supply and demand. There'll be houses that nobody wants and that but that people want the cash out of that get sold short. There'll be all kinds of things.
yeah,
That's not the point. That muddies it up. What the point is the point is architecture. The point is design. And if you're a human serving other humans, whether you trade time for money or not, whether you are a practice owner in dentistry or law firm or not, guess what? Human beings still can't go sit in cyberspace and have their teeth worked on. They can't
yeah,
get massages in cyberspace. Like they can't lay down on a non-physical table in the metaverse and get their back rubbed
yeah,
or cracked.
yeah,
So there will be a human economy regardless, just like there's a dog economy that has exploded despite dogs having any agency over a wallet. Like I've never seen a dog with a wallet. Have you?
no. Backpack, yes, wallet, no.
Never seen a dog with a wallet. But dogs, dogs are a big economy. I mean, they run around on the beach near me and
Yep,
they are smiling and they are happy. They have no idea how they got there,
oh,
right?
they don't
They
know about their
when
health
you're
insurance
leaving
policy.
and they're happy as clams. And if that's
Yeah,
us and we have a bunch of agent overlords that we don't even know who's doing what? Are we gonna care? No, we're not gonna care. We're gonna be happy house pets, hoping they treat us like that versus, a mangy dog on the street that no one wants, right?
I don't know,
So,
that's sounding pretty Matrix, Chris.
look, bottom line is whether we're aware of it or not, what we will see, what we will be aware of is the grief that comes from losing someone or being the person who's about to go and saying goodbye to your family, the stress that comes from administering that estate, my stuff, whatever my stuff is made up of, that stress will be real. That will be
Mhm.
felt. And some of that can be avoided.
Yeah.
The anger for doing it wrong, doing it late, not getting it right, those are things that we will feel. Those are things we don't have to wonder
You
about.
gotta go through all 5 steps of that of loss. I mean, it's gotta happen.
So, what we're really talking about now is not doomsday. We're talking about we're not dead yet. We're not incapacitated yet.
Yep.
We have a business. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's a practice. Maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe I make more money now on the side, or my wife it becomes the professional mom who does monetize it because she stood up a YouTube talking about how professional moms are
Right.
the highest unpaid earners on the planet. And now all of a sudden other professional non-paid moms are following her to clip. But this is not something magical. This happens already.
It does.
So there's
Ballerina
ton
farm.
of ways to monetize things that were not monetizable before. The question is what's the container? How transferable is that value?
Yep,
What is your plan for it? Are you okay if it stops when you stop?
yep,
That's one option. That's totally fine. Some people would be delighted by that. They want a pin in
yep.
it. They want it to not go on forever. That's fine, but that's a design choice.
It is.
So
Just real quick, Chris, wanna get out here, before we run out of time, but y everything you're talking about on that design and looking at, where my stuff is, what do I have, where is it, how do I control it? The planning fork for us, that we have to look at once someone has died is, do I have a contract? Do I have an agreement that I can use to transfer this to wherever it needs to go? And that's clearly something you can do ahead of time, or do I need a judge? And if I've done no planning, I probably am gonna need a judge. And so that's another one of those practical pieces that you need to identify. If you don't know how you're gonna transfer, each of those things on your list, that following, if there's no way to transfer it, you might need a judge to do it. So how can we set up an architecture so that you don't have to go to court? There's almost always a way. I have yet to find a way, a situation where we didn't have a tool to prevent going to court.
yeah, the other thing in there in that design is not just avoiding going to court when you can and you kind of know how you want it to go and playing the role of judge in advance. The other side is not just for tax purposes, but strategically for continuity purposes. What do I control? What do I own? What do I manage? And what does a change of control look like
Mhm.
versus a change in management versus a change of ownership? Because all three of those live under different contractual law. Yes.
They do. Yeah, that's one of the hardest concepts for people to understand, control versus financial benefit.
So let's
Um,
break it down in plain speak in the last 10 minutes because I think that's the one I want to
sure.
hit on today. And then because that touched on some questions. We're paraphrasing all the questions, guys, this week because it's just been more fun this time talking with Owen. But these are all from questions and kind of clarifications that got submitted off the last two articles and sessions. So let's talk about plain speak change of control, change of management, change of ownership. If I'm the small business owner operator,
Mhm.
I run something between 0 and 100 million a year.
Okay.
That's like a small business, right? So, and it's closely held.
Okay.
Maybe some investors, but they're not like the majority is family controlled or owner
So
operator dominant.
so debt investors, not equity investors.
Yeah, or if it's equity, it's like passive,
Okay.
friend, family, and fools, like easy to
Sure.
buy out or easy to
Or
handle,
like
but
a
no,
preferred stock kinda thing.
yeah.
So
So,
you had a question?
well, so the question was, if that's my situation, if I'm the majority owner at present,
Mhm.
then I have, and I want to do something with my shares, they were in my name, then that is a transfer of ownership
It
mechanism.
is.
And depending on how I transfer that ownership, there could be different tax implications now or upon the estate being settled out.
Mhm. Yep.
So I guess layman's terms, is it better to transfer it now in advance of my incapacitation and death into something that may be more continuity generated?
Yeah.
Or is it better to wait and just have a plan for how it gets transferred upon my death?
This is where we can dive into a good rabbit hole, good nerd lawyer rabbit hole, because there's ways of kinda having your cake and eating it too.
Mhm.
Some
Which is what I
structures.
wanted you to say because I like cake and I eat it.
Yeah. So short version is, there's different ways depending on, the asset to do things. It depends on who you wanna transfer to, how much, appetite do they have to participate in the business, in the future. Where are you? Is your valuation north or south of 15,000,000? Um are we having to deal with some preferred investors? That matters. I think that, biggest mistake I see here, and the reason I would say transferring it now is unless you're doing something fancy, transferring it now is probably not the right answer, is just the step up in basis available at death. You want to complete the gift as a result of someone passing because capital gains is going to apply if you transfer it now. It's either going to apply as a transfer in the original basis, or it's going to apply as a gift tax return that you have to file. And these things they're gonna come get you. So
So
um,
one of the advanced strategies, and I want you to explain a little bit more layman's what the step up in basis, like a scenario. So let's
sure.
start there. So let's say that I'm a simple entity solo operator. Maybe I have an LLC, maybe I'm an S corp, whatever. I'm a professional practice. Like I'm one of the people that we've seen in the
Mhm.
chat. I've got a cash flowing business. I've been doing it for however, and it's a simple structure. Maybe it's a corp or an LLC, and kicks off a K1 to me, and I draw a salary from it.
Mhm.
I started that. I may or may not have officially, because a lot of people may have not. They may have just legal zoomed it. I may or may not have officially issued myself stock. Now, I could always go back and do the small businessy guy, owner operator thing and clean up some things. But at the end of the day, some people may or may not have issued it. Assume that they did and they took the legal limit of par value at 0.0001 or
'Kay. 'Kay.
whatever. So I issue myself a million shares or a million units or a unit or whatever, and I charge myself par value at the legal minimum. So
Mhm.
I pay my $100 and there I own 100% of XYZ. The step up in basis would be if I transfer that now, I'm transferring that to you, let's say,
Mhm.
but part of that transfer would be putting a valuation on that. So if there's tax
Right.
returns, there's things like that, and it goes, hey, this thing throws off $2 million a year, and then you do some kind of market math on that 4 to 7 times EBITDA. This thing is worth 14, 15 million. So now all of a sudden, those shares that you just gave me created a taxable event
Yep.
for who? For you? For me?
For both.
Right.
Because
So
because
you essentially gifted them to me,
yep.
but they're now worth not 0.0001 a share. They're now worth potentially, let's just say the thing was a $2 million business throwing off 7 times EBITDA, right? So 2 million times 7 is $14 million business. If it was a million shares, instead of it being worth 0.001, it's worth $14 a share.
Right. Right. So now you've established a new basis, and when I eventually transfer those shares, at $14, so that's a good thing for me because 'cause I've now established that basis, but guess what? That's also a gift, right? So unless I did something to earn that, if not in exchange for something, if it is literally a gift, like if it was between family members, that's a gift, and that's a gift tax return. That's gonna get charged against your currently $15,000,000 gift tax exclusion, which then carries forward to your estate tax, exclusion. So,
Right. So
um
in other words, the good news would be it was under the $15 million exclusion. The bad news is I only have $1 million left when I die before the tax hits.
well,
It's
you also need to file that return, and, if you don't file that return, um, assuming the IRS knows about the transaction, but there's penalties for not filing the return. So
So the other option is if you didn't do it that way, if there was a um, transfer of ownership at basis or at some other thing, and I don't want to get too cute with it, but like let's say you designed it where it went out of my name. So I no longer own them as I don't own the shares of XYZ as me, the individual. I don't give them to anybody, but I create a holding company.
mhm,
And that holding company is brand new. So that holding company has the opportunity to issue stock to shareholders at par value because the holding company is brand new. And that shareholder doesn't necessarily have to be an individual. It could be a family LLC. It could be whatever I want it to be. That holding company C corp now, let's say it was in Wyoming, wink wink. I'm just talking about some of the things that allegedly I might have done. So, if I have that holding company and it is now in a state where there's only corporate tax at the federal level, there's no income tax or corporate tax at the state level, it has strong property rights, and its job is to hold assets that operate.
mhm.
The shareholder of that can be totally different, and it's not gonna be me because I don't wanna own that company, but I wanna
Be a
control that
trust.
company. It could be a trust. That trust could then have its beneficiaries be a private trust company,
Mhm,
or they could be individuals, or they could be an LLC. So when you put in some of those layers there, what you're really doing is now you're trying to create a structure where you don't have to necessarily change ownership of the operating asset if you wanted to keep it in your
right,
family, for instance.
right.
You are just changing who has the control that can vote on who manages it, who issues distributions or dividends to who, and you're putting it out of your name into a structure where there's better tax treatment, better property rights, and also where now you just work for the company, maybe through an
Yep,
EOR like Pebble in a state like California, where you're just a boring old W-2 guy who runs a company, has a little side hustle called Wealth Matters Media that has the exclusive rights to distribute a name, image, and likeness of a persona that wears hats and talks that's revocable by some company that is over there in some other planet, state, whatever. And so I get a K1 from Wealth Matters, and it pays me what it pays me, and I have a W-2 from Pebble, and that's my EOR, and so when I go get a bank loan, for instance, from a practical standpoint, I'm lendable because I can just show up with
yep,
pay stubs like every other average Joe. Everything's documented. I don't have to worry about compliance. I don't have to worry about FTB. I don't have to worry about state benefits, workers' comp. I just pay Pebble. I just get my salary. I'm just a working Joe,
mhm.
but my assets exist somewhere else, and I don't own that company, but I control that company.
Yep, yep, and,
These are things reserved for billionaires, but the reality is they just take understanding, what am I trying to achieve? What do I need to own? What do I need to live on? And what do I wanna pass down?
yeah, and in states like Wyoming, states like Colorado, where, we can set these things up to last for 1,000 years, we can really do some nice things. We've got some great
So talk
options.
to me about, let's say that. So that's the point I'm making is if you were to think about yourself as an income generator and that the vehicle by which you generate that income may or may not be perfectly planned for what you want to leave behind. So if you want to leave a foundation that is enough for your family to have a chance to do anything, but not a chance to do nothing, to not be crippled by financial overwhelm or money making them, fight and all that, but have enough where they're not struggling and starving for basic needs, like whatever the goal is, right? People build wealth and then they decide it's another problem trying to figure out how much to give to who, right?
Yeah,
So there's all that planning that has happened. But assume that you're doing this and you go, yeah, if you can set me up for 1,000 years where there's no triggered event that creates this transfer of ownership because I've set up
right.
1,000-year plan where ownership never changes hands outside of my family for the things I want my family's generations to own, then what happens with changes of control? And then what happens with changes of management? Because those things over 1,000 years will happen. So how is it different and better or worse? Tell me that. Tell me that side as we wind up today.
Yeah, yeah, and, and just to prelude a little bit, this is really getting deep into Matt territory. So this is one of the reasons I'm thankful for the opportunity to work with Matt because learning a lot of this stuff from him. Um, control, while separated, still is set up usually set up in an entity. That entity is set up and registered, with the banking regulators in Wyoming, and that thing itself has to be designed to have its own succession strategy. So you want to make sure that when you're putting these things together, that you're not forgetting the succession piece of each step along the way. Um, there's there's time, attention, and detail behind all of it, and so we've been getting requests over the last several days for people who are trying to set these things up themselves with AI, and
Mm.
uh, uh, I
Yeah, I mean,
I see
I think that's
them,
a good
and
point. I mean, I wanna say that so that you don't have to. I mean, look, I'm not here to shill services for people. I'm not here to do it. I'm just telling you guys what I've been working on and what I'm doing, and then who I work with. I work with Owen, I work with Matt, so full disclosure there, like, there's no but you can use whoever you want, but here's the point, that I use AI to think. I use AI to understand my options. I love the fact that I can now not have to talk to an attorney who probably hasn't read every legal precedent in the last 100 years of every case because they didn't have the time, or an accountant who hasn't read all 80,000 pages of the IRS code. I love that I don't have to ask someone to go do something that I can now do myself with pure accuracy at source level, right? I can go to the public documents under the IRS code and I can ask it questions and then come back with scenarios. But in no way, shape, or form would I bet my future generations' certainty on that interaction. What I'm trying to do is figure out what is the house that I'm going to design, how many rooms are in it, who gets to live
Mhm.
in what rooms, what street is it on, what states does it operate in, how many satellite rooms are there, what do they hold? And then I go to an
Yeah,
engineer and I go, make this not, make this earthquake proof. And the human is the engineer in the sense of they might look at that and they go, yeah, this is all makes sense. However, Matt will say, this statute actually you're missing. This is not intended for this, or this statute, this is internet FUD or FURU on YouTube, right? This
yeah.
is not going to work in the court of law.
Or
But
yeah,
here's the
or your
intent.
AI hallucinated an MC Escher trust for you, because that's
Yeah,
what you asked it to do,
right.
but that doesn't exist in the real world.
So I think the point is we've been these talks, these AMAs, office hours, are both about real questions that people have asked us or that I'm asking or clients are asking you, and so that people can shortcut what the questions are and even what to think, and then start to design in their mind what their ultimate fortress looks like, however you want to relate to it. But at the end of the day, like just like if you were building a house, you're going to hire someone with experience building houses of the caliber that you want, and you're going to be happy they're there. And they're going to be engineers with expertise in the nuanced things. So you're going to have a plumber, you're going to have an electrician, you're going to have a CPA, you're going to have an accountant, you're going to have a lawyer. Like you're going to have people that you need. Um, you're going to have a dentist. Like I don't care how much I can learn about molars. I'm going to someone who knows and has been cleaning them for 30 years. Like like
Mhm.
I'm not going to sit there and use AI to tell myself how to give myself, a cleaning. So
Meat space
it's the
still
same
matters.
thing. Yeah, it just makes you a better client or a better customer of those services because the ability to get educated now is not driven purely by keyword optimization. It is driven by facts
Yep.
or hard data. So that's, I think, a nuance in the evolution of search is the sense of I used to go to Google and say, why do I need a Wyoming asset protection trust? And if you do that, you'll get a shit ton of answers, pardon my French. And some of them will be right, and a lot of them will be incomplete because maintaining the thing is more important than having the thing. You can pay anywhere from a couple grand to 20 grand for one of these things. That doesn't get you anything. That's like
Yeah,
buying a Ferrari, but not having a driver's license and having no pit crew to help you run it and keep it on the road, right? That's
right.
silly.
Or a Tesla
So,
with no maintenance contract.
right, yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
now we're in a world where you can actually find out what are the statutes? What are the 22 digital asset laws that Wyoming passed between 2018 and 22? List them out for me. Tell me how I would use them. Here's my scenario. You can do that pre-work. Then you come to someone like a Matt or an Owen or whatever, and you say, here's what I've got. Here's what I've kind of learned. I know enough to be dangerous. How should I design this? And now you're having a real conversation.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I think it's a key
Keep it
point. All right.
human.
So we are over time. I could keep talking about this with you forever. And final points you want to make before we wrap this episode up, because we covered a lot of ground that we weren't intending
We
to cover.
did.
And I'm really glad we did.
Yeah, so, I guess final point here, back something we said earlier, just, know what you have, know who you have, and be honest with yourself. Because if you're lying to yourself, you're the easiest one to fool. So, be intentional about it.
Yeah, and I think, from personal experience, one of the things that is important is if you have a partner, a spouse, whoever, obviously someone that is they may think differently than you, they may organize totally different, like, really get clear
Yep,
on what do they think we have? Do they even know what we have? Do I know what they have? What is it that we mutually want? Like, where can we align? And then how simple can we keep it? Because a lot of this, I think, sounds complex, and some of it is, but just because of the design being maybe complex doesn't mean the experience has to be complex. And that's the
right,
point. Good design,
right.
good engineering is like I sit in the Mercedes or the BMW or whatever my favorite, whatever, right? I sit in it, I turn it on, I hear the sound, and I go. That's good design. I don't understand how the damn thing works, but I know the people that designed it for me did. So
Yep,
I'm happy to pay them. Your business, you know how your business works, but you might be the only one. But other people are going to make their living off of it. The employees you have, the managers that you have, the successors that you have, they're going to make their living off of it. So you kind of owe it to them to design it like that, where
yep,
they can just get in and go. And if you think about it that way, it kind of gets exciting. It gives you new hair on your, you know what, to like get
yeah,
fired up about,
yeah,
because you're in the repetition of it, right? You've been doing it for so long. Now you got to design it for somebody else to enjoy. And you're not quitting tomorrow.
yep.
That's the whole point.
Take a
Here's what
look
you're
at
going to
those
find.
pictures of the 3 versions of the, Starship engines, the version 1, the
Oh, yeah,
version
I
2,
love
the
it.
version 3. You go for that version 3, where they just keep shrinking
Right.
and shrinking and shrinking, because they're applying that design philosophy. And now it's a
Yeah, and
lean,
it's an
mean, more
iterative
powerful
process.
machine.
Right, and I think that's a great analogy because, again, the rocket still went up in the air even though it was uglier, and now that it works perfectly every time almost, now they can work on the polish and making it look as
Yep,
good as it runs. And right now, if you've been in business for 20, 30 years, 15, 20, 30 years, but you're not done yet, at some point you will be done mentally, physically, or anything in between. So it works, or you wouldn't be here. But now that it works, like, let's polish it up. And guess what? Your last 5 years riding in that thing or whatever you have left are gonna be the best 5 because you're gonna be, like, sitting in the version 3
yep,
as you coast into the sunset knowing that someone else is gonna take it beyond it, or someone's gonna buy it from you for a premium value, or whatever the plan is. Your kid's gonna run it or take over, whatever your design is. So, this is your chance to take something that works and, put polish on it, and and then also make sure that it's secure. So, anyway,
yeah.
thanks for tuning in. If you tuned in live, if you're on replay, thanks for do that. Keep submitting the questions. You can DM them. You can put them in the comments. I love it when you put them in the comments because then other people can see them. Otherwise, I'll be back here next Wednesday. We'll probably have Matt back. One of these days we're just gonna have all three of us on and we're just gonna go nuts.
Yeah,
Um, but I appreciate you sitting in today. You're always
sure
brilliant.
thing.
We went in a different direction than we would have because of your knowledge graph. So
Hey,
I
I'm
am
not Matt,
excited to
nor am I his brother.
know, and nobody has that beard. That's for damn sure.
Yeah,
That's an IP in and of itself. You better
my
you better
my
NIL that.
COVID beard.
Yeah, you better NIL that thing before somebody tries to steal it.
There we go.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been another Atomic AMA with our office hours. We normally call them Matt Chats. Today they were Shields in Succession with Owen Hathaway. Follow him, subscribe to him. He also writes on Substack. He is a law partner. And we'll do the last little takeaway. If you do want to talk with someone about Wyoming, you can call 307-463-3600 about your asset protection strategies. Someone, a human actually, will answer that phone during business hours only. And then they will call you back if they miss you during business hours. So you'll get a call there. If you want to reach out to Owen directly, you can reach him at 970-820-0090. And I am Chris Snook saying thank you. Goodbye.